don't you want to go to that gospel feast, that promised land where all is peace? Oh, deep river, Lord, I want to cross over into campground.
Shabbat Shalom. We have gathered together on this Shabbat to honor an extraordinary man, a man who had courage, conviction, a vision, and a belief in God. He knew that the world in which he lived was flawed and unjust. He believed that things could change. He dedicated his life and tragically gave his life for his belief in the sacredness of all human life. Every man, he said, is somebody because he is a child of God. And he was right. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and those who stood with him when he delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, and who marched with him and supported him, they all made great strides. Unfortunately, though, we know too well there is still much, much work to be done. A great deal of change must still take place before we will truly be able to say that in all corners of this land, justice wells up like water and righteousness like an unfailing stream. If we are to experience God's kingdom on earth and live in a more perfect society, then we will need to be the ones to continue the work of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. May we who are gathered here tonight be inspired to do our part to bring more equality, more justice, and more compassion to this broken world. It is my pleasure to introduce Gregory Raming, who we heard sing so beautifully at the beginning of our service. A star of local, national, and international opera stages, Mr. Raming, a baritone, has won numerous vocal competitions and performed leading roles throughout the world. This includes productions on Broadway and at Carnegie Hall. A highlight of Mr. Raming's career came when he performed for then Prince Charles, now King Charles III of the United Kingdom, at the Cathedral of the Assumption during the monarch's visit to Louisville. Mr. Raming loves teaching. Even with his busy schedule, he mentors a musical group of young African-American men called Second Chance. The group performs at numerous events specializing in the sounds of Motown. With his guidance and nurturing, these young men, who were once facing hardships, are now college students. Mr. Raming is the vocal instructor at Kentucky Country Day School and teaches in his private studio. He studied at Indiana University, Bloomington, the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, and at the University of Miami. He lives in Louisville with his husband, Christopher Brady. Welcome, we're so glad you're with us. It's also my pleasure to welcome back Dr. Sean Dawson, who has been our High Holy Day accompanist for the past 5 years. Dr. Dawson is currently the Associate Director of Music at Christ Church United Methodist, where he serves as principal organist, directs 2 handbell choirs, serves as Assistant Director for the Chancel Choir, and oversees the Sanctuary Concert Series. He earned a Master of Music in Organ Performance from the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York, and a Doctor of Musical Arts in Organ Performance from the College Conservatory of Music in Cincinnati. He has also studied piano, harpsichord, violin, and conducting. Dr. Dawson serves on the board of the local American Guild of Organists chapter, and he lives in Jeffersonville, Indiana, with his wife and 3 children. So we welcome you back. We're glad to have you with us, Sean. We'll continue on page 3 in our prayer book with the lighting of our Shabbat candles by Caroline Rosenthal. Reading page 3, blessing page 2.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chadlik ner Shem Shabbat.
Amen. I now invite Mark Smith to the bema. So you know, tonight we have several members of our congregation, older folks and younger folks, who have brought some readings that they'd like to share on this special Shabbat.
Thank you for allowing me to speak at this event. In a speech in Detroit on June 23, 1963, Dr. King said, "When we let freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of that old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last." I too long for that day, and I hope that my actions, my words, and my support for causes are doing more to bring about that day than to impede it. And I hope that I am helping others to bring about that day just as I draw strength from what others say and do. I think that is what we do best at Temple Shalom. We help each other to do the work of Tikkun Olam, the repair of the world, and to help each other be steadfast in the hope of bringing about that day. But when hope lags, we can draw strength from a sermon that Dr. King gave at Temple Israel of Hollywood in June 1965. He said, "When our days become dreary with low hovering clouds of despair, let us remember that there is a creative force in the universe, working to pull down the mountains of evil, a power that is able to make a way out of no way out and to transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows. Let us realize that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." I like that particular image of an arc bending towards justice. It reminds me of an album by Pink Floyd, The Dark Side of the Moon, that some of us of a certain age will remember. It's a black cover, totally black. And from the lower left-hand side comes a white light that advances towards a triangle in the middle, which is a prism. And as it enters that prism, it bends into a rainbow of colors. I tend to think that we are the white light, that our actions and all of we do is the white light coming towards the prism, which is our consciousness, or not our consciousness, but our conscience. And for those of us that don't have a conscience, it's God, and for those of us that don't believe in God, it's natural law. And as it passes through the prism, it transforms into a rainbow that is bent at a new angle. That angle, no one asks it to bend in that angle. No one has to persuade it. No one has to legislate a law. It just does it. It's natural. And I tend to believe, like Dr. King, that it naturally bends towards justice. And I hope we'll all take hope from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We're going to continue on page 146 with the Baruch Hu, our call to worship. I invite everyone to please rise as we open the Ark. And I heard the lovely voices of the Shear women harmonizing. Thank you, love it. I now invite Seth Scarborough to the bima to share some thoughts with us.
One thing that Martin Luther said is, we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. This inspires me because it states that for every bad thing, there's still hope, and that we will get through anything as long as we can hope.
Thank you, Seth. I invite Amy Shear to come up next.
I'm straddling, can you see it? Caged Bird by Maya Angelou. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But a caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom.
I wish that I knew how it feels to be free. I wish I could break all these chains binding me. I wish I could say all the things I should say 'em loud, say 'em clear, for the whole world to hear. I wish that I could shallow love in my heart, remove all these bonds that still keep us apart. I wish you could know what it feels to be me. Then you'll see and agree every man should be free. How I wish I could, how I wish I could, wish I could. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things I can do. No, I'm way overdue, but I'd be starting anew. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all these chains binding me. I wish I could say all the things I want to say. Then I'd know, yes, I know how it feels to be free. Then I'd know how it feels to be free.
Thank you. I now invite Noah Chotner to the bema.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." I feel that this is an important quote. As a teenager growing up in the 21st century, I know there's a lot of hate everywhere. And I do believe that love can drive out hate, as MLK said, because we are stronger than hate, and we will continue to fight for what's right. Martin Luther King Jr. believed in the right for freedom. Despite what people said and the hate that was targeted towards him, he continued to fight and protest. He never stopped. He truly is an inspiration and someone we can all look up to. During this time, it can be hard to have hope, but just remember we are stronger together.
So these ideas that people are sharing are ideas that lead us back to remember that we are all children of one God. Adam and Eve had no religion. Adam and Eve were the parents of all of us. And as we rise for Shema Yisrael, the watchword of our faith, reminding us that there's one God in heaven and earth, I hope that all of us can feel and remember that connection that binds all of us to each other. Please rise for the Shema 149.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please be seated as we continue with the chanting of V'ahavta, page 150.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol lebecha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mesavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech u'v'shachpecha u'v'chumecha u'kshartam liot o yedecha v'hayu letafot b'eineinecha u'chvatam המזוזות ביתך ובהישארך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. were very close friends. Yes, they were allies in the fight for justice and against discrimination and prejudice, but they were also friends. They had a personal relationship. And the following telegram, there were no emails then, the following telegram was sent by Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel to President John F. Kennedy. I've shared it before, perhaps even from this pulpit, but I find it so powerful and meaningful that if you've heard it, don't mind hearing it again. I look forward to privilege of being present at meeting tomorrow, 4 p.m. Likelihood exists that Negro problem will be like the weather. Everybody talks about it, but nobody does anything about it. Please demand of religious leaders personal involvement, not just solemn declaration. We forfeit right to worship God as long as we continue to humiliate Negroes. Church, synagogue have failed. They must repent. Ask of religious leaders to call for national repentance and personal sacrifice. Let religious leaders donate 1 month's salary toward Fund for Negro Housing and Education. I propose that you, Mr. President, declare state of moral emergency. A Marshall Plan for aid to Negroes is becoming a necessity. The hour calls for moral grandeur and spiritual audacity.
State of moral emergency. His proposal came in caps. Special delivery, 3 times underlined. JFK months away from a bullet through his brain. And Heschel, graying in his haste to put things right, destined to walk with a king. Church, synagogue have failed. They must repent. The they typed between the lines, a space in repent. The period widowed. Words drunk with urgency staggered across the paper, imploring their reader. I propose that you, Mr. President, declare a state of moral emergency. Still, police manned the water cannons, defending deaf ears. Klansmen kept killing. The Negro problem will be like the weather, he prophesied. Everybody talks about it, but nobody does anything about it. The know and the body, tenuously penciled together, proofread on the fly, no longer a body or anybody. And like the weather, still it rained, still it rains, still it rains. His Marshall Plan for Negroes, now archived online with his printed plea for spiritual audacity.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long ways from home. A long ways from home. Sometimes I feel like the bird in the sky. Sometimes I feel like the bird in the sky. Sometimes I feel like the bird in the sky. I'd fly away from here. Lord, I'd fly away from here. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm
Thank you. The next piece was written by a younger member of our congregation. Intentionally wants to remain anonymous. A wise man once told me, people see the world as black and white, but there is a shade of gray in between. But now I see there is an infinite amount of shades in between. So true. So in our worship service, around this time, we would chant the Mi Chamocha. It's the prayer that reminds us that we were slaves in Egypt and that Moses, with God's help, worked and pleaded with Pharaoh so that we could be free. And we recite this every time we come together, every morning and every evening, because we can't forget our history and that we were slaves, and we know that Moses played a part. Well, we know that in the African American community, they also have a song that speaks of Moses and their struggle for freedom. Go Down Moses is like our Mi Chamocha.
When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go, oppressed so hard they could not stand. Let my people go. Hold on, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Thus saith the Lord, bold Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your firstborn dead. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. I said, go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people
It's now my pleasure to invite Nancy Rennick to the podium.
I chose a poem by Amanda Gorman, who you may remember wrote the inaugural poem for President Biden. This was written for another inauguration, that of Tracy K. Smith at the Library of Congress, for her inauguration as Poet Laureate. It's called In This Place, an American Lyric, and I picked it because it reminds us that we have done much work, but there's a whole lot more to go. There's a poem in this place, in the footfalls in the halls, in the quiet beats of the seat. It is here at the curtain of the day where America writes a lyric you must whisper to say. There's a poem in this place, in the heavy grace, the line face of this noble building, collections burned and reborn twice. There's a poem in Boston's Copley Square where protest chants tear through the air. Like sheets of rain, where love of the many swallows the hatred of a few. There's a poem in Charlottesville, where tiki torches string a ring of flame tight round the wrist of night, where men so white they gleam blue seem like statues, where men heap the long wax burning ever higher, where heather higher blooms forever in a meadow of resistance. There's a poem in the great sleeping giant of Lake Michigan, defiantly raising its big blue head to Milwaukee and Chicago, a poem begun long ago, blazed into the frozen soil, strutting upward in a glow. There's a poem in Florida, in East Texas, where streets swell into a nexus of rivers, cows afloat like model buoys in the brown, where courage is now so common that 23-year-old Jesus Contreras rescues people from floodwaters. There's a poem in Los Angeles, yawning wide as the Pacific tide, where a single mother swelters in a windowless classroom, teaching black and brown students in Watts to spell out their thoughts so that her daughter might write this poem for you. There's a lyric in California where thousands of students march for blocks, undocumented and unafraid, where my friend Rosa finds the power to blossom in deadlock, her spirit the bedrock for her community. She knows hope is like a stubborn ship gripping a dock, a truth that you can't stop a dreamer or knock down a dream. How could this not be her city, su nación, our country, our America, our American lyric to write, a poem by the people, the poor, the Protestant, the Muslim, the Jew, the native, the immigrant, the black, the brown, the blind, the brave, the undocumented and undeterred, the woman, the man, the non-binary, the white, the trans, the ally to all of them above and more. Tyrants fear the poet. Now that we know it, we can't blow it. We owe it to show it, not to slow it, although it hurts to sow it when the world skirts below it. Hope, we must bestow it like a wick in the poet so that it can grow lit, bringing with it stories to rewrite. The story of a Texas city depleted but not defeated, a history written that need not be repeated, a nation composed but not yet completed. There's a poem in this place, a poem in America, a poem in every American who rewrites this nation, who tells a story worthy of being told on this minnow of an earth to breathe hope into a, and this is a hard word for me, palimpsest of time, a poet in every American who sees that our poem penned doesn't mean our poem's end. There's a place where this poem dwells. It is here, it is now, in the yellow song of dawn's bell, where we write the American lyric, where we are just beginning to tell.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got got the whole world in his hands. He's got the wind and the rain right in his hands. He's got the wind and the rain right in his hands. He's got the birds and the bees right in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the beasts of the field right in his hands. He's got the beasts of the field right in his hands. He's got the little bitty babies in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got you and me, brother, in his hand. He's got you and me, sister, right in his hands. He's got everybody in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
Thank you, that was beautiful. And God also has in his hands those who are sick, those who are in need of prayers of healing, healing of body, mind, spirit, soul. Tonight, we call to mind our loved ones that we want to keep in our prayers. Lev Dickerman, Leonard Glazier, Jim Todd, Larry Goldwyn, Rich Goldwyn, Donna Gould, Mike Sheehan, Maggie Barbieri, Brad Parkins, Erin McElvin, Terry Anderson, Karen Pass, Gerald Barron, Evelyn Waddell, Soon Lee, Rivka Bat Freemeet, and Aviv Naamani, who is homesick, and that's why he's not with us tonight, and Janet Naamani as well. If you'd like to add the name of your loved ones for us to keep in our prayers, please say their names aloud as my eyes meet yours. Yes, God, bring healing to our loved ones as we do all we can to be a source of comfort to them during their time of need. We join together in our Misha Baruch prayer for healing, which can be found in the middle of page 253.
Misha Baruch Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishe Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema.
continue with Tefillat Halev, the prayers of our heart, as we continue silently.
Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'yakol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'yakol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'yakol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'yakol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen.
So now it's my pleasure to introduce Rachel Klein. Rachel is a middle school English teacher. She was a middle school English teacher, language arts teacher for JCPS from 2008 to 2018. She then became an equity and inclusion resource teacher. Currently, she is a specialist of anti-racist pedagogy, also for JCPS, in the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Poverty. Rachel is a graduate of Miami University of Ohio and earned her master's degree from Western Governors University. She is currently working towards her doctorate in education at the University of Louisville. Rachel is the wife of Noah, the mother of Harper, and a member of Temple Shalom, and I invite her now to share some remarks with us this evening.
Probably I'm short though. You just put it, there we go. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rachel Klein, and I feel so honored to join you all for this very important MLK Shabbat service. Whether you find my face to be a familiar one or a brand new one, please allow me to give you a glimpse of who I am and why I about Judaism from him and his family. Without a doubt, Passover has become one of my favorite holidays to celebrate, to celebrate while gathered around the dining table in Noah's childhood home with his extended family. I'll share more about my love for this annual gathering in just a bit, but let me take a moment to step back and share more about my personal and professional life. While my hometown in central Ohio can boast about its growing racial and religious diversity today, it was not this way when I was growing up during my formative years. In this somewhat small town, I grew up surrounded by mostly white Christian people who by and large looked like me. I am immensely grateful to my parents who encouraged me and my brother to be open-minded and accepting of others, but I had limited opportunities to exercise this mindset until I entered college to pursue a teaching degree. However, my alma mater is most definitely a PWI, or a predominantly white institution. Sure, there were students of color, but religious and LGBTQIA+ diversity prevailed over racial diversity in terms of my growing exposure to those who were different from me. I graduated from college, and I've called the Bluegrass State my home since I began my teaching career in 2008. In my years here, I have had the distinct fortune to learn from many people who call Kentucky home as well, and as a result, I am better for it. You see, as a young teacher, I found myself in my first classroom looking out into a sea of eyes that reflected experiences, cultures, religions, races, abilities, and languages that were nothing like mine. And I was not just excited to learn from them, I was faced with the immediate reality check that I had homework to do if I was going to provide an education that met my students where they were. That homework assignment has never been turned in, however, as I'm constantly refining my answers and assessing my confidence in those answers. This determination to see and honor and value others for all of their intersecting identities begat a career change for me as I pursued and filled a role as an equity and inclusion resource teacher for the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Poverty here in Jefferson County Public Schools. This role morphed into the role that I currently hold as a specialist of anti-racist pedagogy. Surely at this point, you have some observations and questions, perhaps most notably, am I aware that I'm white? I'm white. Oh yes, I am reminded of my whiteness every day. I'm the minority in my department and definitely in my field of work. I keep this reminder close each day as I work with my colleagues to upend this systemic inequities in education in terms of outcomes and opportunities for our most marginalized students here in JCPS. I'm faced with not just my own whiteness, but the pervasive whiteness that seeps into so much of culture, society, expectations, policies, and systems. The role I play in all of this is quite complex, and at times, I feel concerns of participating in something called white saviorism, or the act of swooping in from my positions of privilege to help Black and brown people who maybe never declared that they needed saving, and those feelings plague me. I do not wish for my actions and my allyship to be accused of this, but I am human, therefore I'm not without flaw. I have likely failed at times in my approach to social justice, but I push forward anyway. This brings me around to why I mentioned Passover as holding a special place in my heart. I am reminded annually of a very special passage in my husband's Passover Haggadah that never fails to leave me breathless, and because I call myself Jewish adjacent, it leaves me feeling guilty. No one is free until we are all free. Attribution for this quote is admittedly confusing. Fittingly, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has been attributed to this quote, but also names such as Fannie Lou Hamer, Emma Lazarus, and Maya Angelou. Despite the confusion, the meaning is what strikes me. Oppressed and marginalized groups experience pain and trauma in ways that I cannot speak to, for I am largely protected by the many privileges that I have as an able-bodied, neurotypical, middle-class white woman. The notion of collective liberation, however, suggests that there is a premium on liberty. But we don't achieve personal freedom by competing with others for it. In fact, when messages from society and history books suggest that people must haggle or compete for their freedom, then they will continue to do so as those with unchecked privileges maintain their strongholds on systems and institutions that uphold the very oppression that people so desperately are trying to crawl out from beneath. Engaging in this so-called oppression Olympics gets us nowhere, and I cannot abide by comparing whose oppression is worse in an attempt to feel a comparative advantage. This plays into the power of the oppressors. Oppression is oppression, and a rising tide lifts all ships. It is when we stand on each other's shoulders, show up for each other to fight for each other's causes, and extend ourselves beyond allyship into becoming social justice accomplices that collective liberation can finally begin. And contrary to what some people believe, extending freedoms and privileges to the oppressed doesn't take freedom and privilege away from those who have it. It gives more and more people the opportunity to not just thrive, but to contribute to a vibrant, functional, and enlightened society. If no one is free until we are all free, then what might we actually accomplish when we are all free? I will tell you all that as an education practitioner, our best moments are in the classroom, are when, after we've taken time to make our students feel safe in spaces that we create for them, then they feel this growth. But we have to push our kids to the edge of comfort. Nobody likes that place, nobody likes that feeling, but it's in those moments of discomfort that our students recognize that they need to kind of learn a little more to come back to that comfort zone and feel better. In truth, this moment for students and adults alike is terrifying. In truth, excuse me, I've already said that. Confronting our fear in service of learning is beyond difficult. There are 3 zones of comfort, and we talk about this a lot in our preparatory education classes, but the meaning is applicable to anybody. So we have these zones of comfort, and there's the comfort zone. That's a really comfortable place, obviously. We like being there, but we don't learn in the comfort zone. And then you have on the extreme end, you have the alarm zone. And when people are there, there's no learning occurring because we are in fight or flight mode. We're trying to escape that feeling of alarm. So in the middle is this sweet spot that educators really love to push on, and that's the discomfort zone. Humans want to be comfortable, so when they're simply uncomfortable, then they're going to do something. They're going to change, they're going to grow, they're going to learn in service of returning to comfort. Maya Angelou famously observed, "Do your best until you know better. Then when you know better, do better." Reflection is key, but sometimes it isn't easy about what that metaphorical mirror is showing us. Sometimes it reveals painful truths, but we must choose to let our pain, our guilt, and our discomfort motivate us to do better. To free oneself, free others. Tikkun Olam tells us to repair the world. And as every single one of us is of this world, we all have the responsibility to act in ways that liberate each other, despite our differences. We owe it to our ancestors. We owe it to our Black and brown sisters and brothers, our impoverished populations, our LGBTQIA friends, our Muslim neighbors, the list goes on. Living an authentic life is a life that is freely lived. It is a life that everyone deserves. Liberation may not be easy, but together we must act in each other's best interests if we are to evolve. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to evolving with you.
Rachel, thank you so much for your inspirational words. Really grateful. And I'm grateful to you and then everybody who participated in tonight's service. I really thank everybody who wrote something, and even to our anonymous young person, thank you to you too. So now I'd like to invite Avery Kohlers, chair of our Tikkun Olam committee, to offer tonight's announcements. Ooh.
First off, can I say thank you so much? Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Gregory. With those lungs, when you are blowing down the house of injustice, I want to be by your side and not in that house. Just some announcements. Tomorrow, Shabbat morning services are at 10:30 a.m. Monday, Temple Shalom's office will be closed for MLK Day. Monday is bingo night. Volunteers are needed to sustain this profitable effort. Please speak with John Soletto or Ed Gould if you're able to lend a helping hand. Sunday, January 29th at 2 p.m., Paint and Sip. Paint, drink, and have fun with our own artist, Bob Title. RSVPs are required. Friday, February 3rd at 6:30 p.m., we have our 3rd annual Highest Refugee Shabbat. Lost Tribe will be our musical guests, and we have a special speaker, Husnia Sarwari, a young woman who had dreams of becoming a doctor, started university just as the evacuation took place, and she'll share details of her journey from Kabul to Louisville and to the University of Louisville. And Oneg will follow services, so please RSVP. Friday, February 17th, in honor of Black History Month, the ASEI Ensemble will be with us to both perform traditional drumming pieces from Ghana, West Africa, and to accompany Aviv Naamani with our liturgical music. And an oneg will follow services, so please RSVP. And there's an oneg tonight in honor of Martin Luther King's birthday. It features food from local black-owned businesses, particularly from Summidat and More at 26th and Jefferson, and Georgia's Sweet Potato Pie Company on Bardstown Road, and other treats and goodies. So I hope everybody will stay and enjoy. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. And I just also wanted to give a big thanks to Avery and to all the members of the Tikkun Olam Committee. They're constantly coming up with great ways to help repair the world. To be honest, most of them take place outside of this building, which totally makes sense. And more opportunities will be coming and continue to come. So thanks to all the members of the Tikkun Olam Committee, and many of them were part of tonight's service as well. So at this time, we are going to call to mind our loved ones who live on within our hearts and our minds and our souls, but are no longer with us physically. If you are here tonight to recite Kaddish for a loved one, you're invited to rise when his or her name is read aloud. Tonight we remember Helen Bergman, David Edelson, Gloria Fader, Maurice Goldberg, Adele Kansiper, Elizabeth Kling, Zolman Kammer, Stanley Reeser, May Walker, Joe Wolf, Alfred Helft, Betty Marcus Isaacs, Jesse R. Newman, Dr. Mark Schaffner, Joseph Snyder, Gary Weiser, Emma Wittenberg, and we're in a period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning, for Nira Reebok. Zichronam Levracha, may their memories be for a blessing, and may they rest in peace as we rise together as a congregation, reciting the Mourner's Kaddish, page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yotei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayeichon u'vyomeichon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari v'yimeru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei tekudesha berichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechemata. Ta'amiran v'alma v'yimeru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shamaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen. Oseh shalom b'momav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved as we say together. I also want to thank Lee. Don't be seated yet. I want to thank Lee also for helping with music on short notice. We're going to do Kiddush Motzi now, so that when we go into the auditorium, and I hope everybody will join us, just dig in, and there'll be some challah and grape juice on the table on the right as soon as you walk in.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafein. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kadisho Yahava Luvratson Hinchilanu Zikaron L'Maseh V'Reshi Ki Hu Yom Techila L'Mikrae Kodesh Zecher L'Tziyat Mitzrayim Ki Vanu Barcharta V'Yotanu Kidah Mikom
And now for the challah. And because we're going to go right into our concluding song, I just also want to offer a very heartfelt and deep thank you to both Gregory and Sean for being with us. I knew tonight was going to be great, especially when I heard you rehearsing on Wednesday. Thank you for being with us. You have blessed us, and we appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, now it's time for Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon. I'm going to throw them a curveball. I'm going to sing in reverse. So I'm going to do Let There Be Peace on Earth. And then you're going to join me down, and we'll make a circle if we can, joining hands, and we will sing We Shall Overcome. All right, so I'm going to sing the Let There Be Peace on Earth for you. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as our Father, brothers all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step we take, let this be our solemn vow, to take each moment and live